Today's class is all about machine guns. We're going to be going over a lot of theory, going to give you some good examples of that being put to use, and potentially some whiteboard as well. Alright, so before we even get into position, think about choosing a position or start shooting. We're going to talk about how we can refer to a lot of this. So we're going to start over here. These targets here, if my soldier, my machine gunner is this way, facing them, he has frontal fire on these guys because he's shooting at their front, right? Perhaps they're walking towards him, perhaps they're just looking at him, but that doesn't really matter. It's just that this is the front. If I was shooting at these targets back here, this would be flanking fire, right? Because I'm shooting at their flank. Now, any position in between these two would be known as oblique fire. So if I'm at a 90-degree angle, flanking. If I'm head-on, frontal. And then anything in between over here, this is all oblique fire. Okay, what do we want? You probably want flanking fire, right? But more so than that, so you're going to want enfilade fire. Enfilade fire being one soldier being able to effectively suppress or kill, potentially, an entire group. So if my machine gunner is back here, they don't have to be perfectly in line with me, right? But I can get enfilade fire on all of these targets because they're all dead, right? Or at least they're all suppressed. This is enfilade fire. That is your number one thing that you want as a machine gunner. Obviously, you're looking for close groups, right? We're not a point weapon system. We're not going to be shooting at one little guy out in the distance on that tree. Or even if he's close right here, I mean, we might protect ourselves in that instance, right? But we want our groups. We want area denial. We want direct fire. We want to put rounds through walls. All of that. We also have grazing fire and plunging fire. These are not relative to your enemy, but to you and the terrain. So if I'm here, and I'm shooting at targets all the way on the tree line out there, I have to range up super far, and obviously as I do that, I'm aiming higher and higher. And you see those rounds have a ton of arc on them. They're dropping maybe 20 meters before they hit their target. So all of these targets that I'm shooting at here, I wouldn't be hitting, right? So plunging fire you can hit with almost as an indirect fire weapon system if you have enough distance between you and your enemy or a short enough wall that they are behind. Perhaps you see these guys I can't even see, right? Because they are behind these BTRs, these targets here, or BMPs, excuse me. But I can hit targets behind this one via BMP if they're far enough away, because I have plunging fire. Now, the opposite of that is grazing fire. So like a cow grazing the grass, you're going to be cutting the grass with your machine gun fire. So maybe you're not aiming exactly in the grass, although you can. You might be aiming up to 1.8 meters above it, so that anything within 300 meters is going to be in the danger area. So suppressed or potentially dying, right? So they could be this close, or they could be all the way out there. It doesn't matter. If they stand up, they're getting schwacked. Believe it or not, we have even more kinds of fire. We have fixed fire, so firing on a single position, like the window of this bunker. We have traversing fire, which would be going right to left and left to right. And we have searching fire, which would be up and down. And these are going to be done for obvious reasons, right? This would be shooting at depth because the enemy is at different heights. Traversing would be laterally, fixed in a single position. Now we also have free gun, which would still be shooting. It's not quite scan and shoot, because scan and shoot, you would be waiting to see something before you fire. Free gun is going to be aiming wherever the machine gunner deems appropriate. It's been determined that they are commanding where. And in addition to all that, we have traversing and searching fire, right? So we can combine these things. So if we don't know, maybe we have an enemy squad that's pretty spread out in this tree line, both laterally and in depth, I can just go ahead and combine the two, right? Or maybe I make a Z in my tree line. What is a good fighting position for a machine gun team or support by fire element? Well, METTC situation will dictate. Of course, things like your element size are really going to be relevant here, but what we're going to use is PICMDEEP. So, paired emplacement or placed in pairs, we always want our machine gun teams to be working together, and ideally, optimal distance according to Marine doctrine is 35 meters apart. Of course, this is going to vary. We can easily do talking guns from this position. What are some other reasons why we want that? Well, we want interlocking fields of fire. If I'm shooting from the left over here, and I have a machine gun team shooting for the right, anyone in this valley is going to have a hard time finding cover from both of our positions, right? Additionally, we want coordination fire, so we want to be speaking to each other, right? We want to make sure that we are using the right weapon for the right goal, perhaps at the right distance. Maybe I have a 240 and the team over there has a Mark 19 or something crazy like that. Doesn't need to be quite so much like that, but that we are working together so that when I reload or whatever, they know that and they can pick up my slack. We also want mutual support. So if I get blown up, I get shot, there's a ton of smoke in my face, or I just need to reload again, the other team can take up the job, right? Now we want defilade. We want to be able to survive the fight. It's not really a whole lot of good if the machine gun team gets to go crazy for 15 seconds and then instantly takes a GL to the face. So we want defilade. Defilade being terrain between the enemy and myself, right? We want to get something that's going to keep us alive. We also want enfilade. So enfilade being what we talked about earlier, right? One burst can suppress an entire formation because they decided to get all in a line and walk straight towards me, or maybe they're going to the left, but they're all in a line and I can just smoke them or easily suppress them. Now the other E is economy, right? So we want to make sure that we're using the right weapon system at the right fire rates, and etc. We'll get more into that in a minute here. But we also want protection. So maybe I don't have enfilade, or excuse me, I don't have defilade, or maybe I do, but I could still put some sandbags here, or I could dig up a little trench. All of these kind of things, because I need to survive the fight to continue this. This is probably something that's going to be taking a long time if we're setting up a proper SBF, right? Because even if it's a react to contact and you are doing react to far contact, your friendlies still need to move all the way around to get perpendicular to you and your enemy, right? And then sweep through. So that's something that's going to take time and you need to be alive for it. And additionally, getting shots not fun. But how do we get to that position? And what is a good position for us? Well, the first part, we're going to use MORT, M-O-R-T, method, objective, route, time. So your method is going to be something like occupy by stealth or occupy by force. Force, obviously, being fighting your way there. Perhaps you don't actually have contact on your way to the objective, but you are not trying to stay concealed. You are ready for contact. So perhaps you're in this position in a wedge, all moving forward to your objective over here. Or perhaps you're doing it by stealth, right? You're going to be crouched in a different formation like a column or something like that to mask your movement using the terrain and objective. So where are we going? We'll say we're going to the edge of this tree line to watch the field with these positions out here. But the route specifically would be through here, alongside the tree line. Perhaps we're going a really long way and that'll be drawn out on a map or on a road, right? And the time, of course, it could be the literal time that's happening, as in like 7 a.m., or it could be a status thing. It could be when Alpha takes this building, when red smoke is popped, when the enemy leaves the bunker. Anything like that is acceptable. But what you don't want to hear generally is 30 seconds. However, for dire situations, that makes a lot of sense. Now, clearly, we can play a lot of games without using a MORT, right? We don't need to know. You might not need to hear that to move 10 meters or even 100 meters or something in Bellum. But something like this can be really nice for follow-on actions, right? Or perhaps we have a primary SBF position and then a secondary one that we're going to move to later as the friendlies move through a large objective, or if we take a lot of fire, etc. Now, let's say I'm the second machine gun team in the forest here. How can I apply PICMDEEP? Well, I probably don't want to be on the edge of the forest here. where there's nothing between me and the enemy down there. Ideally, we'll be keyholing. If we have a large enough element, we're probably going to put our machine gun deep in the forest here with lots of cover and concealment. So there may be right freaking here where they can barely see, because they are the one doing the shooting and being directed, because they should have an assistant gunner or a team leader who is walking them on with binoculars, right? So we're finally in position, but there's still more things we can do before we start shooting. We can assign TRPs, target reference points. So we might make this bunker TRP1, the field out here with very little trees, TRP2, down there where there's slightly more trees and bushes, that can be TRP3 next to that sign. And now we can make the base of the tree line TRP4, perhaps a little bit higher up is TRP5, and those rocks are TRP6. Now, why am I going to the trouble of that? Because, especially for urban areas, trying to describe each building every single time I'm telling my machine gunner to fire on something, or my team leader is trying to tell me where to shoot, can be a real pain in the ass. Maybe we don't want to say third building from the left every single time. It's a mouthful, it takes a lot of time. TARP 1, TARP 2, etc. is going to very quickly tell me where I need to shoot or communicate where I need my gunner to aim. Additionally, we can assign stuff like minimum safe lines. So perhaps it's a bearing at 030. I don't want my machine gunner shooting anywhere right of that, and they can shoot left of that until 300, being their left lateral limit, or left minimum safe line. Additionally, you can do this real world and also in video games by making the call me, shaka, or surfs up hand signal. So if you put your 3 middle fingers into your palm and extend your pinky and your thumb out and put it in front of you, suddenly you have your 15-degree offset, 15-degree offset. And anything that's within that, any friendlies that are within that, means you should not be shooting because you're at risk of killing them. Now, you can do this in Bellum, right? And it'll actually extend your character's arm out in front of you. If you do this in Reforger right now, depending on how big your monitor is, that's going to be a different size. But the concept applies, and you will roughly apply it with your video game character. But we can tighten it up because we're playing video games and because we have more control than we would over such a beastly weapon system like the 240. All right, we're back to firing. So some things that we didn't include before are beaten zone and cone of fire. Both of these things are going to get a lot larger the further away we're shooting, and presumably so is our maximum ordinate. Maximum ordinate being the highest point above the ground that the round is going to go. So if I'm shooting way out of the tree line here, the maximum ordinate is about there. We'll call it 15 meters, maybe 30 meters above the ground, something like that. That terminology for our purposes isn't super important, but at least you know what it is. Now, what is the beaten zone? Beaten zone is the entire area that those rounds are landing. So it's not going to be perfectly circular out there, right? It's going to be kind of in an oval pattern because I'm probably going to be trying to pull down to affect my recoil, and maybe sometimes I'm going to get a little bit higher than I want. And ideally, I shouldn't be going too far left to right unless I'm doing traversing fire. But the beaten zone is going to be this whole area that my rounds are hitting. So I want enemies in the beaten zone, or at least in the danger area. Beaten zone is especially going to be the case if we're doing plunging fire. Now, what is the cone of fire? Cone of fire is going to be the dispersion of your rounds. So if you just pretend that the circle in my crosshair here, that could be is getting bigger or smaller. That could be my cone of fire. It's going to be smaller when it's close because my recoil is not going to be so bad. So like if I was shooting right here, I maybe have a cone of fire that's 3 feet across. But if I'm shooting way out there, suddenly my cone of fire is like 10 meters wide at least. That's the vast majority of the theory. There are also some important things like FPL and PDF being your final protective line and principal direction of fire or primary direction of fire, but those will be covered more when we get to ambushes and defense. Do not worry about that right now. What I want you to think about in this moment is ADDRAC. What is that? That's going to be what we use for managing our guns and calling out contact. The first letter of that being A for alert. What is that? We're going to call out the contact, right? So I see this fire, I see some infantry, I'm going to yell contact, then I'm going to give a direction, front, or maybe it's 12 o'clock, or south, or even a specific bearing, like 172. Doesn't really matter, so long as that we communicate effectively to our machine gunner what it is. And then we're giving a description. So infantry by the fire on top of the hill, could be Ural in the open, moving left to right, any of these things. And then we're finally giving a range. Maybe it's something approximate. Maybe I have time to range it like this, and I say 400 meters. At this point, I wait for my machine gunner to respond to me. He might say tally, he might say eyes, whatever. Whatever your unit SOP is, this is something that we will give to you in the future. But from here, let's say he sees my contact, he says tally. Then I'm going to give him his assignment, right? Or maybe it's the whole weapon squad. From there, I say gun 1, open at cyclic for 10 seconds into rapid rate talking guns. And then what he needs to know after that is how or when to do so. So C for control, right? Could be on my mark, could be fire at will, could be on the 40 mic, the law, etc. It's important to note that the ADDRAC does not only pertain to the first moment of contact, but for the duration of the firefight. Perhaps I'm shifting fire and lifting fire. I need to make adjustments, right? So adjust up 20 meters, left 50 meters, or left 30 degrees, etc. The idea is that this is a constant process going on between the machine gunner and his assistant gunner, or the team and the weasel. I mentioned cyclic and rapid. There is also sustained. These are rates of fire. When it comes to rifles, this will be different, but for these kinds of weapon systems, such as machine guns and automatic grenade launchers, cyclic is holding down the trigger until you run out of ammo, until the barrel blows up, or something like that. Obviously, that's going to be reserved for emergencies or initiating contact when you want to gain fire superiority, or reacting, right? Again, to gain fire superiority. Rapid is going to be a step down from that. We're going to say die. We're going to hold down the trigger as we say die motherfucker die, and then we're going to release the trigger. So it's going to look like this: die motherfucker die, die motherfucker die, die motherfucker die. How long between bursts is going to be something we discuss in a second. Sustained is very similar. It's die motherfucker, die motherfucker, die motherfucker. So it's not quite as long, and these things are done to obviously fit our fight. Maybe we need more rounds going out, so we have to go up to cyclic or we have to go up to rapid, but perhaps we don't have the time to do that, or we don't have the ammo to do that. Perhaps we have a force here with us that is flanking around, and we need to cover them for the duration of that movement. And if I go rapid for that entire time, we're going to run out of ammo before the team gets there, or I'm barely going to have any ammo left, and I won't be able to protect myself in any additional contact or in any additional engagements. Now, exactly how long is spent between these bursts will be up to your team leader and weasel. So you might hear something like rapid 4, and what that would look like is obviously we're going to say die motherfucker die, but then we're going to count to 4 between bursts. So die motherfucker die, 1, 2, 3, 4. Die motherfucker die, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this could be rapid 6, rapid 2, sustained 3, whatever. That is completely up to the discretion of the team leader or squad leader. But what is talking guns? Talking guns is a conversation between your weapon system where one is firing and none of the others are firing. So one is talking and all the others are listening. So if we have 3 machine guns, or maybe we have 4 machine guns, only one of those weapon systems is firing at a time. And obviously, this is going to save us a lot of ammo. And while it may be really boring for the individual gunner, it's definitely not boring for the enemy. Because for them, it largely feels like they're being shot by a machine gun constantly. Little do they know, or perhaps they can tell, but we have 4 machine guns over here with a fuck ton of ammo, right? So how can we better communicate when there are so many weapon systems trying to work together? Well, the gunners, and I prefer it to be the gunners, can say the name of their team once they're done firing. So if I'm gun 1, I would go gun 1. And then there would be, a few seconds, maybe we're on sustained 3. And then gun 2 would fire and say gun 2. And then there'd be a break. Gun 3 would fire and say gun 3, and etc. And obviously we go down the line and then it comes back to me, right? Gun 1 reload.
Up. Gun 2. Gun 1.
Well, maybe we didn't have time to communicate that, right? So what else can we do to help manage ammo? We can communicate that we have half belt, half box, quarter belt, last burst, and etc. So we're communicating that I need to reload soon, or I need to reload now after this next shot. That's going to be good information for my team leader. Perhaps he has one of the guns stopped firing. Perhaps he has them hit an early reload. Perhaps we thought about it beforehand, and when we're conducting our ambush, we only have 2 of those machine guns firing, or perhaps we have one of them hit an early reload, right? So if we had 3 machine guns and only the first 2 were firing, maybe gun 1 and gun 2 go cyclic for 10 seconds, and then we go into talking guns with gun 1 starting, gun 2 next, gun 3 next. And then when gun 1 and gun 2 have to reload at nearly the same time, gun 3 can do talking guns by themselves. So gun 2 and gun 1 are silent, and gun 3 is just doing die motherfucker. Die motherfucker. And then they hear gun 1 up, and then they do their next burst. Die motherfucker. Gun 3, they say. And then gun 1 takes over and starts talking back. Gun 1 and gun 2 initiate on my flare 3, pick up afterward at rapid 3, talking guns. How copy?
1 copies. Gun 2 copies. Copy on 3.
Stand by for flare. Gun 3 by yourself on your next burst.
Okay, copy on 3. 1 online. 1. Gun 2 up.
Let's say we're in a weapon squad with 3 medium machine guns. We're doing talking guns and I'm third in line. Gun 1 fires and nothing comes from gun 2. What should happen next? Well, I should probably shoot, right? Perhaps something is going on with gun 2 where they're not aware that we're doing talking guns and they're up. Perhaps their radio doesn't work. Perhaps they got shot. The thing is, the fight needs to continue, right? So if we were given rapid 5, gun 1 fires, and now 6 seconds have passed, and gun 2 is not firing, I'm going to start lighting it up. Additionally, there's also something called rolling guns that you'll sometimes hear, which is very similar to talking guns, except for the fact that there's no break between the guns. There is only one gun to the next. So if gun 1 is firing, gun 2 fires immediately after gun 1 stops firing. If you walk away with nothing else after today, what I want you to know is that machine guns are an extremely important part of every fighting force. They should be used effectively and efficiently, and the biggest parts of that are going to be communication and coordination. So working in pairs, working between an A gunner and a machine gunner, the team leaders and their squad leader, and the entire platoon. Additionally, you should know your fire rates, rapid, sustained, and cyclic. And I also want you to know what talking guns is. That's all. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good rest of your day.